And in fact, Nomi Prins writes, if it seems as if the culture of Goldman Sachs pervades the halls of Washington, that's because the people of Goldman Sachs pervade the halls of Washington. That's why, despite all the talk in Washington about reforming the system, the same execs who orchestrated its failures were the ones hobnobbing with the political leaders of the Bush and Obama administrations.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing to realize here. This is not a partisan situation. This is not like Bush was bad, Obama's good, Obama's bad, Bush was good. You know, there's a series and years of interrelationships, no matter which party is in power in Congress and no matter which party has the presidency. Hank Paulson, who was the former CEO of Goldman Sachs.
When you were there, right?
When I was there, of course, was the Treasury Secretary that was involved in a portion of the bailout. The other person that is involved in the bailout, Tim Geithner, was working with Hank Paulson during that time, and so there's a consistency in approach related to what Goldman people and someone like Paulson wanted. Robert Rubin, another former co-CEO of Goldman Sachs before I got there, just before I got there, was very instrumental in deregulating the banking system to devolve into the problems that we now have under Clinton's administration. So we have these series of both Goldman ties as well as deregulatory actions, no matter who's in control politically, that culminate to create a situation where we see crisis and then wonder how did that happen?
You used to be with Bear Stearns as well.
Yes.
What did you do for them?
Again, I've always been involved in structuring these types of assets. Therefore, I do know these very well. And I left to write about them, but I wasn't uninvolved. And when I was at Bear Stearns, it was in London, and I worked on a lot of different types of analysis. I worked in giving suggestions to investors as not just buying toxic assets, but which government bonds to buy, which governments were better, which were worse at any particular time, and a lot of the analytical type of advice. And I think when you're in the environment, and that's why I can look at it from outside and really dissect it. You don't think about the ramifications necessarily of the products you're making. There's all of this pressure to make money. There's all this pressure for your area to make money within the firm, for your firm to make money within the industry.
Is it constant?
And it's absolutely constant. And there's a real, it depends on the day and the firm and everything else, but everyone is talking about how to get to the bonus. There's months where this is discussed towards the end of each year before they are set. Everything sort of leads up to really making money, and you don't have conversations like, oh, if I'm betting and creating a structure that's going to hurt Greece, oh my God, what's going to happen to the Greek people? It just doesn't really enter into the conversation, and that's a really bad part of the entire industry. And it continues to get worse because everything that's made and all of these products and all this that's been accumulated, there's nothing to counter it. The rules that are being put forth again in Congress really won't, and so it continues to just spiral badly, and every so often it has to correct itself for a second because the market comes down and buyers go out, but they come back in, and then it goes on.
Next call for Nomi Prins, Decatur, Georgia. Good afternoon.
Yes, Naomi, you know that this synthetic CDO is nothing more than a stock future, and there's always a seller on the other end of that type of trade. So, regardless of whether it's John Paulson or John Doe, IKB, which was the bank that was on the other end of that trade, actually, they tried to upgrade that investment by putting in 14 of their own mortgages to try to upgrade it, which what they ended up doing, they ended up downgrading it, which they didn't know. So the government case, they didn't disclose that John Paulson was on the other end is without merit. This is nothing more than a political football. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Well, I mean, as I said before, the fact that Paulson was the other side is, to me, not an issue, and for that to be made a part of the issue really isn't where the potential thought, I believe, would lie if there is thing. I don't think that's the problem. The problem is potentially this. When the deal was put together, and yes, IKB was on the other side, but there was a management team that signed off on these securities, on the reference things that were inside the CDO, and that was 5 different parties, including J.P. Morgan, including Merrill Lynch, including AMBAC, And they were the selectors. They were put on the marketing materials being the selectors. Paulson was also a selector, and he was specifically not put on the marketing material. So the question is, would this management group have done the deal? Would people have invested had they known? Maybe they would. They obviously wanted to invest in this deal. But things could have turned out differently had they known that, and it was not disclosed, specifically not disclosed. And I think that's where there's a potential case.
What is Demos, and why are you in California?
Demos is a nonpartisan public policy think tank that deals with issues from voting rights to financial reform and everything in between. It's based in New York. It's actually going to have its 10th anniversary next month. I joined right after I left Goldman, actually when WorldCom was the crisis of the moment. And that was the first thing I was speaking about corporate fraud and about WorldCom and how banks and those companies related to each other. But Demos itself is 60 or so individuals now. They're based in New York. They have an office in D.C. They are beginning.
Is it a George Soros funded?
It's not actually funded by George Soros. I mean, there are other funders, and Ford is a funder, and there are other types of funders. I believe the Rockefeller Foundation is or was. So I mean, there's some significant funders behind it, and a lot of the work is very research-based. There's a lot of data that is also used for the reports that Demos comes out with. I did a report on bank risk and really looking into the books and really seeing where their numbers were. And those kinds of things take time and research and effort and that kind of thing. I am out in LA really kind of to be an offshoot, but also because I kind of like LA. It's a change for other reasons and other types of writing and things as well to be on another side of the country.
Was there something that happened, or did it just kind of add up for you to leave the world of finance?
I think it was an accumulation process. I mean, I think even when I was at Bear in London before I moved back to New York to be a part of Goldman, I was kind of already a bit disenchanted with everything we were doing and how it was turning out. This was around the currency crisis and everything else. I mean, it just wasn't feeling right what I was doing, and also just the environment. The internal politics, the bureaucracy, the intensity on the money. It just seemed really empty, and yet. I did move back to New York. I did join Goldman as the last place in the industry that I worked, and I really hated it. I really thought that everything I felt about the intensity of how a firm operates and what it does and how that doesn't connect into what's going on outside in the rest of the world really hit home for me there. And I think after 9/11, where I was on Wall Street, I was in Goldman at the time. Those are the kind of moments where I think a lot of us just think, is this what I want to do with my life, or do I want to educate? Do I want to do something else?
And this is Nomi Prins' most recent book. It Takes a Pillage is the name of this book. But she's also written Other People's Money, The Corporate Mugging of America, and Jacked, How Conservatives Are Picking Your Pocket, Whether You Voted for Them or Not.